everyone, it's Micah. Welcome to our Tuesday reaction series where we are going through the number one Billboard Hot 100 hits of each calendar year. We're up to the year 1961, and the number one song of that year was by Bobby Lewis. The song is called Tossin and Turnin. From the very, very light research I did on this song, this was a 7-week number one in 1961, and it's a rock oldies classic. It was featured in the 1978 film Animal House, which I think introduced it to a slightly newer generation of listeners. And I don't know if I've heard it. I can't imagine that I have not heard it, but we'll find out shortly, because I've only listened to the opening seconds of the song when I was setting up the video. So this will be a brand new listen for me. It's only 2.5 minutes long, so I think I'm just gonna shut the heck up. Let's listen to this song.
Baby, baby, you did something to me. I couldn't sleep at all last night, just thinking of you. Baby, things weren't right when I was tossing and turning and tossing and turning all night. I kicked the blankets on the floor, turned my pillow upside down. I never did before, because I was tossing and turning and tossing and turning all night. Jumped out of bed, turned on the light. I pulled down the shade, went to the kitchen for a bite. Rolled up the shade, turned off the light. I jumped back into bed, it was the middle of the night. The clock downstairs was striking 4. Couldn't get you off my mind. I heard the milkman at the door, 'cause I was tossing and turning and tossing and turning all night. Jumped out of bed, turned on the light. I pulled down the shade, went to the kitchen for a bite. Rolled up the shade, turned off the light. I jumped back into bed, it was the middle of the night. The clock downstairs was striking 4. I couldn't get you off my mind. I heard the milkman at the door, because I was tossing and turning, tossing and turning. Day, I was a tossing and
That song was probably just about exactly what I was expecting. I do not know that I've ever heard this particular song before. Unfortunately, and this is going to sound like a bit of a dig, but it's really not. This sounds like a generic late 50s, early 60s soul record. Before Motown stepped in and refined the R&B sound and made it more pop friendly, and after the initial burst of rock and roll energy, this seems like that pocket in between rock and roll and Motown. And it reminds me a lot of the early Stevie Wonder songs, and just about any other song that I know of from around this period that was in the soul and rock and roll category. Very similar arrangement. It sounds sort of, there's a lack of clarity, and I don't know if that's because of the recording technique or if it was an actual aesthetic preference. There's this sort of blaring background vocals that almost sound otherworldly. It doesn't sound like a real, like it sounds like there's 3 women who are singing background, but it sounds in somewhat indistinct. It's hard to describe, but there's a very, very particular sound to the soul records of around this time, and it tags them for me as sounding old timey. And so while I appreciate from a nostalgic standpoint, it kind of also focuses me in on the idiosyncrasies of that particular sound. Um, I am excited to note that this is the first record that to my ears sounds identifiably like a soul record that we've reviewed so far. There certainly have been soulful influences in songs. Nat King Cole, obviously. Elvis Presley, obviously. Soul influences in the songs, but in terms of a straight ahead record that's firmly in that lane and is really something that I would expect was probably number one on the black charts or whatever they were called at this particular moment in history. I think they might have been called soul or R. I don't know if they were soul, R&B, or black charts at this point. I don't think they became the black charts until the 1980s, and then they moved back away from that and started calling it R&B again. But this is the first time in this series where we have a record that I would just say is a straight ahead soul record, which of course is also very, very parallel to what was being called rock and roll at the time. A lot of times the only distinction was the race of the performers. Although that was somewhat porous as well. I know there were lots of black artists who were having number one pop hits, and this is a prime example of that. And I know that there were probably some white artists who were crossing over in the other direction as well. Just because of my familiarity with this other record, I immediately tagged the breakdowns and the instrumental breakdowns in the middle as sounding like Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee Lewis. This song structure is similar to that, but obviously there's way more prominent background vocals here, and there's not a pounding piano in this like there is with Great Balls of Fire. I read a couple of the comments on this video, the one that I just played, and someone was praising the instrumentation. I couldn't make out anything particular about the instrumentation. It all kind of blended together to create this wall of sound for me. I think it would take me listening much more closely to really get anything about any of the individual instrumentation. Everything just sort of was jamming along together. There were no prominent solos or nothing where like a bass line stuck out or a melody line or any of the instruments had solos where I could really even focus on that and notice it. Like I said, it just seemed like a really well constructed generic soul record. Last comment is, it seems like around this time music was more so about capturing a feeling in snapshot, rather than there being layers or movements or different things going on. And that might just be coincidence because we've listened to a couple of those in a row. But last week's number one song of 1960 that we listened to, hi Amir, which was from Percy Faith, was very much a mood type record with basically shades of the same color of chill. This week's song is conveying a feeling of restlessness, and that's really all it's about. There's some narrative around it, but I didn't I didn't see the lyrics displayed, so I may have missed some things in the lyrics, but I think it was basically what it appears to be about, which is about someone who's having mental gymnastics going on, which is keeping him from sleeping. So the song is Tossin and Turnin. He tosses and turns. He goes down to the kitchen. He can't resolve his issues. Oh, someone's calling me. I'll have to get back to you. I have to get back to them, as a matter of fact. So yeah, that's my last comment on this. But a good song. It's not blowing me away. Let me know in the comments what about this song made it distinctive from other soul records of the period that caused it to be such a breakout hit. That's what I want to know. Next week we're going to get on to 1962, and This is very mysterious. The number one song of 1962 was called "Stranger on the Shore." I for sure am not familiar with this song, so this will be a new listen for me as well. Join me next week as I discover that song, the number one song of 1962. Until then, please like this video if you indeed liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you feel so inclined, and please help me to make music better.